Families who discover that a loved one has an alcohol, drug or gambling problem are often unsure how to respond.
I knew Davy was gambling, like. I'd see the car outside. I used to think, there's no possible way anybody could spend that length of time in a bookie office.
One of the things that still stung every so often, my mum you'd rob money off me.
Yeah.
Drug lords. We were so fearful. We did what they said, and I think that's what a lot of families do.
You're always an optimist that this problem will go away, but it's still with us today.
The addicts themselves are often oblivious to the devastation they cause around them.
When you don't have a conscience, you don't have any interest in anyone. Like, my priority was gambling.
2 years in the hospital, like a stroke, you know, paralysed, in coma, and I still went back using.
If I had grown up the way you had grown up, I think I would be a complete and utter nut job.
I wouldn't say off it completely, like I've used in the last 3 weeks, I've been used like with it. I'm not sick from it, or I'm not dependent on it.
In spite of all that has gone on, I still love him.
When it's sitting for so long, the fuel goes back and then it won't go back into the engine.
Valerie from the Neil in County Mayo is a mother of 5.
TJ will be 14 in November. He's our last teenager now, so we have no more babies.
Addiction turned happy family life into turmoil for her children and husband, Tomas.
The girls are in their 20s and, you know, they've all flew the coop now. 2 of them live in England, Elaine and Siobhan, and then the other 2 live here, actually, in Ballinrobe. They're strong women, and I have to say we're not worried about them, despite, you know what, the statistics, I can never really say that word, despite what them stats say. You know, that children who come from addictive homes can be, you know, difficult and addicts themselves and, you know, have major issues and things like that. Whenever I talk to my friends now, we always say when we were growing up that if we were to look into the future and be told that one of us was to become a full-time drunk, I certainly wouldn't be the one. At the very beginning, it was very innocent. You know, it really was innocent. I mean, I'm talking a little drop in a glass with a bit of tonic, because I didn't like gin, but I knew that it was medicinal. I'd been depressed for a few years and didn't say anything to anyone. I was afraid to say anything to anyone, but I didn't know I was depressed. It made them mundane, you know, tasks that we all have to do, that bit more joyful, because I would physically do them, but my head would be somewhere else. And it started to spiral.
It's very therapeutic to have an animal and look after an animal. And of course they don't answer you back either, which is a good thing. Mon Ginger, no, you have enough. Look, and you're on camera. How could you be so bold? It's like those drug lords, when you go too near, you could get a bite.
Cora's son, Paddy, built up a massive debt from long-term drug addiction.
These people, they tried to take over. They left in 10 horses and told him we owed him money, and that they were taking the land. Drug lords that he'd got into debt with. But you see, when you have young children, and I had an elderly mother up the road, you're just afraid that they do something to them. You know, you can't take the chance. They're too strong. You know, we had to pay him to come out of the land, like a sum of money. It was all a secret at the time, and we were so fearful. We did what they said, and I think that's what a lot of families do for a quiet life. Like, we didn't know what we were dealing with, and they were very intimidating, and they were ringing. And so we had to meet him in a secret location and give him money. We met him in a village near us, quietly, that no one would see us, actually. Every Sunday it was payment day. And look how bold this guy is. Like, these three youngsters can't be any more than 14 running to collect the money. And it's just sad days, you know, for all the family. My son could do anything. Onto the nature of things, he never really kind of carried anything through, like. He was easily led, he was always different, out to take a chance, like. He was just attracted to all the wrong things in life. You know, you'd say to him, like, don't smoke, then he'd smoke. He'd always do the opposite to what you wanted to do. He always had to be that bit better and do a bit more. And he just went down that road of taking stuff and couldn't give it up. He's like the weather, he changes from time to time, and he'd be very remorseful, and then he'd be very angry, and he thinks he's hard done by, and I think that's what a lot of the family members can't understand. His dad doesn't talk about him because he absolutely loves him. It's very funny, actually. Weeks and weeks would go by, and he'd say, "Did you see your man?" And I'd say, "No, did you see your man?" We'd be tiptoeing around each other, like, we'd be talking privately away from the lads, because his name isn't mentioned, and that's the sad thing about it. You know, it's like there's a lot of grief in the family. But they've kept me sane. Animals.
Cora's son is living in Cashel, County Tipperary. He and his girlfriend are currently homeless.
This is where my car was parked. We were sleeping rough inside there, and the guards came and took our car, and that's how we became totally homeless. Never felt loved or anything like that at home. Like, I just completely different to all the rest of them. Like, I just always felt out. Like, I don't know. That's why I was went on drugs. Like, it was the only friend I kind of had. You know, I kind of like. My mother was hard to get on with, Anna, to be honest. She's hard enough to put up with, like. And I'm not saying she had it hard too, like with me, like, so I can't really, you know, blame her for any of my addictions or anything. I can't blame anyone for my addictions, really. It's all down to myself, like.
Do you remember any of those times, the difficulties that you might have put them through?
Sure, I was using the drugs at the time, like, I didn't care about how they got paid for, or what hassle they got put under the pay from, or what threats were made to them. Like, I was gone.
Have you ever thought about apologising to anyone for that?
I have apologised to everyone that I can apologise to, like. I think by staying clean and doing what I'm doing, like, it's kind of more a way of saying sorry than nothing else, isn't it?
Have you had any slips?
I had a slip here and there, like, yeah, I won't tell you a lie. But nothing heroin, on cocaine and crack and stuff, but that's it, like. I haven't been in touch with heroin ever since.
Dave, a businessman from Bray, has not been in contact with his eldest daughter in over 6 months.
When our daughter was identified that she had a drug problem, that was some 16 years ago. From a very outgoing child, she became very sort of withdrawn. We just felt that she wasn't fully engaging with the family becoming more secretive. And we tried as best to understand where our daughter was at and engage with our family doctor. Sought help from the various institutions in Dublin that were specialising in addictions at the time. But you're always an optimist that this problem would go away, but it's lingered, it's stayed with us. It's still with us today. It has never left us. I mean, there was good times when she thought that she had control, but sometimes she would slip, and each slip seemed to just get deeper and deeper. Our daughter's former partner, Wesley, we would have been very upset with him, and I suppose I would have blamed him, but it wasn't a blame game at all. It was an addiction that two people had become attached to, and that took over their lives. It really did.
Wesley is the ex-partner of Dave's eldest daughter. He has been clean from drugs for the past 4 years.
19 years I was on heroin. I remember doing my junior cert, like, I was on drugs, like, doing my junior cert, like, you know. I don't think I'd done a day clean, you know. And then 19 years, I'd have to have something. I lost count how many times I did. 2 years in the hospital, like, you know, and in a lot of pain, you know, a stroke, you know, paralysed, in a coma, and a heart operation, and I still went back using. Last night I got 3 times, you know. Chronic addict, like, just kept going, like, you know. I ended up 6 stone, 9 pounds, you know, death's door. And then when I got clean, like, everybody started to notice, like, you know, geez, you're looking great and all, like, you know, and I didn't see that myself, but it took a while to see that, like, you know. I was still with my partner at the time, you know, and she was still active, like, you know. I was trying to get my head together, like, you know, so yeah, it was hard work. I just stayed doing my thing, like, you know, my meetings, and I stayed clean. I started to live life, you know, being responsible, you know. That was a hard thing for me, to be responsible, you know. I try to be honest today, like, with a new relationship. I don't just think about myself. I'm proud today, you know, I'm proud. And there's people that came into my life, you know, that helped me, and the gratitude I feel, you know, it's amazing.
Having a new hip is actually an old drinking injury. It was during the summer holidays, and we had a trampoline at the back, and the children were small, and I decided in my wisdom that it would be great fun, you know, to go on the trampoline. Then I was very big. I was 25 stone at that time, and it was inevitable something was going to go wrong.
Val is a frequent visitor to Knock Airport. Today, she's picking up her eldest daughter, Elaine, who's on a trip home from England.
Every time I have to go and collect someone in the airport, I always get that song, the breakfast roll song, going around and around in my head. It's simply because if they came in an early flight, they'd always want to pull up at a petrol station because they would love the breakfast roll. So I would always end up humming that song in my head. Usually if I was drinking, one of the children would have to be either kept at home from school, because they're like, you have to keep an eye on mum in case something happens to her, or to be around to look after TJ, because he was just a small child. They were just young girls, they were teenagers, and, you know, with their own problems and their own issues and their own things. They wouldn't bring friends around to play. Even if they came in from school with a friend, I might be sober, but I mightn't be sober a couple of hours later, you know? So they just never knew which way it was going to go.
It's very busy here today.
I tried to stop the drinking myself. I was like, right, I'm not going to drink during the week. I'll just drink at the weekends when Tomas is home. And that wasn't to be. Sometimes what would happen is I wouldn't drink for months, just as they would start to kind of say, Jesus, maybe, please, maybe this time. Everybody would start to relax, and the next thing, the drinking would start again, you know.
Addiction has no borders, impacting on families from all walks of life, including Galway hurler David Lennon's.
Most of my friends are around hurling, and it has made my life in one way, but I suppose it covered over the cracks, because when I had a good game, you know, I was covering over my emotions with the gambling, and it was keeping me going. Gambling, it was financially, it was ruining my life, and it was where could I get the next few pounds. It was like monopoly money. Where could I go to beg? Where could I go to borrow? Where could I go to steal? To gambling, and that's all I wanted to do. And I felt comfortable in an environment with people that were gambling in a bookies day and night.
He had no respect for anything or anyone really. I think, you know, he was just self-absorbed really with his own addiction. You didn't know who was going to come to the door next to you to tell you what he owed or what he had done, or, you know what I mean? You were just living in fear the whole time.
Turmoil started, I suppose, at 16, 17, which would have been 9 years ago, where you're betting on your 2s and your 3s and your €5, and I suppose your money, then it becomes someone else's money, or stolen money, or borrowed money, and that's when it becomes a problem. Sport was my first, but it was kind of being pushed aside, and it was coming second to my gambling, and it was to how do I make a few pounds.
Like, I knew Davy was gambling, like, but he never, like, he used to say, I'm only going in and putting a bet on. I'd say, you're gambling now. I'm only going in putting a bet on for such a thing. I'm only in there chatting to the lads or whatever, you know. But you well, like. I used to actually even go down to the bookie offices and look in the doors where I would have seen him inside. And I asked the man, I said, is Davy there? And he says, no. And I said, I seen him there. That man, a couple of weeks later, came to our door here looking for €1,000 that he said that Davy owed him.
I was completely a compulsive liar, and I knew people were on my case. You know, there was always chaos, there was always money owed somewhere or another, and I was always, who can I squeeze money out of now? Where can I get the most easiest few pounds?
Sometimes you try to handle things on your own, you know what I mean? You're trying to fix it on your own, and people will say to you, don't do this and don't do that and don't do the other. But when you're a parent, like, it's very difficult to think that you're, you know, your flesh and blood, there's something wrong with them, or like if he had a cancer, like, wouldn't you go to the ends of the earth to save them? I used to just say to him, how much? To be 1,000 or another 2,000, another 2,000, and he'd say, that's it now, you know, and never ever again. And you'd believe him, but sure, a week later again, I knew. I'd see the car outside the bookie offices again, and I might see it there at 10 o'clock. I'd go down and check to see was it there. I'd go again and check again at 3 o'clock and still there. I'd be going home in the evening and it was still there. And I used to think, there's no possible way anybody could spend that length of time in a bookie office.
At Knock Airport, Val is waiting for her eldest daughter to arrive home.
Eileen has been in the UK for quite a few years now. She works in a nursing home. She's a cook in a nursing home, you know, so she likes it. She likes it over there as well.
There is actually gin in there. I know. Oh, can I have a... But I want to take a glass of wine. These aren't for you. I don't know what you drink. Okay. Stick the kettle on there.
Yes, kettle, important.
Hello.
Probably come back sometimes up and 4 times a year. It just depends on work.
Yeah, she's doing all right so far.
It doesn't matter how long she's sober. Sometimes if Mum rang me and if she was upset or anything, my first initial thought would be, is she drinking? Even now, sometimes if she seems a bit funny on the phone, your heart starts going straight away, and you're like, oh God, she's not drinking. She's just do. And then she kind of like, oh God, sorry, I'm half asleep, and then she'll start waking up a bit, and you're like, oh my God, thank God, she's not drunk. It's an awful feeling, like, but I don't think it ever really properly ever leaves you.
Couldn't use this computer 4 years ago. Didn't know how to turn it on.
Wesley is 4 years into his recovery.
I've been offered a trainee project worker job, you know. I just need to be Garda clearance to start. You know, get me foot in the door. That's the plan. I think it's helping people get into treatment, like stuff like that, you know, and you get some gratitude out of, you know, helping someone.
Over the years, Wesley has kept in touch with the family of his ex-partner.
We couldn't never have spoke like this. You know, well, Wesley was a bad word.
Yeah, scumbag it was. I thought he was a bollocks, like, you know, when I was using, like, you know, and my head started to get clear then, you know, and I seen him for what he is, like, when I was a gentleman, like, you know.
We were fraught with the frustration and the anxiety of where the drugs had led us to with my daughter. You never knew that when she went out in the morning what way she was going to come home. She could be, I think the terminology is goofing in the kitchen and falling asleep. Out cold, found her out in the garden one day. You know, it's just...
And your daughter had to leave? Is that what happened?
Ultimately, yes, it had to get to that. It was a very sad day when we had to make that decision.
I know it's hard, like, you know, it's your daughter, like, but it was the right thing to do, you know. It was always the right thing.
Yeah, I still have that very emotive text that I sent my daughter that day. Following on from recent events, with your drug abuse and unwillingness to address your addiction, the family feel it would be better if you stayed away from the house for the time being. We can't cope with what you are doing. I hope you can see what you are doing to yourself and turn yourself around and show willingness to want and show us that you can recover. There's just a lot of things that didn't work out, you know. It was just very unfortunate. That was it.
There's hope for anybody, you know. But they have to come to that dark, dark place, you know, where the drugs stop working and their life is just in shatters around them, you know. I remember in my addiction, like, I always believed that I was holding her back, you know. I was the greedier one, you know, I always wanted more, like, every 40 minutes, you know, I was doing every 40 minutes and I was trying to say, you know, I'll wait the hour. I couldn't wait, you know. That's how greedy I was, you know. How much power I had on me. A bit of powder. Death for me would be relief, you know. I remember pushing the drugs into me, you know. Like, unbelievable, wanting to die, you know, wanting to die. Wanting to die. That's the truth, wanting to die.
beyond comprehension for me in one sense. It's just, you know, I never understood what addiction was or how it can affect somebody like that. And to see where Wesley has come now, it's been an incredible journey just watching him.
Yeah, it blew me away, you know, how I got this leak, you know, how I got clean.
I just hope that one day that our daughter will see that road and will get that help.
Although there are many dedicated treatment centres for addicts, there are few options for affected family members.
How are things with you, Cora? Not too bad. You were mentioning that maybe we do reflexology today. Yeah. Is there any reason in particular, or is it just to kind of relax and just enjoy? Yeah.
Relax more than anything.
Cora regularly attends Novas Respite House in County Tipperary. It's the only public respite centre in the country that provides care for families affected by substance misuse.
Do you ever notice when your feet are tired, all your body is tired?
Absolutely, yeah.
Or your feet are cold, you can't sleep.
Yeah.
We were never brought up with the law coming to us. Like, we never broke the law. And here was every second day we had the guards at our house and the talk and the shame.
And the complexity of addiction, you know.
Yeah. I suppose I got so depressed at one stage that I was just at a stage that I just could not. I was so obsessed in getting him better that I couldn't. And my own family said to me, it's all about him. What about us? And we had the same pain. I couldn't actually see that I needed help until I actually got the number here, and it was just a relief that someone listened and someone was interested in me, and it wasn't about trying to fix him and to stop fixing him, and that I needed fixing myself, and I got my life back on track.
Addiction doesn't pick and choose at whose door it lands at. It can land at anybody's door, and anybody can find themselves in that situation, you know. But it's
It's
hidden. But it's just, you know, sometimes addiction doesn't get spoken about openly enough, and we tend to brush things under the carpet. And I suppose this is the great thing about the respite service and about the clients that come to the respite service. Like, you know, you're powerful people. You deal with a lot of challenges in life day in, day out, and you still manage to hold down jobs, to hold down family life.
I kind of wore a mask. I went out there, I pretended I was happy. I faked it until I made it, as the saying goes. And I remember meeting a neighbour, and she's saying, you know, is that courier gone out of the village, and that druggie? And then I remember getting a phone call, I hope he overdoses some night. And the pain and the hurt, I remember, you know, I say he's my son, like, and in spite of all that has gone on, I still love him, and I'd love to have him well. I'd love him to be normal.
Galway hurling star David Lennon's gambling addiction took its toll not just on his parents, but also on younger brother Ronan.
When you don't have a conscience, you don't have any interest in anyone. Like, the only way I can say it, if I've been honest, like, Ronan was just basically another person that was living in the house or around. That was, to me, because of what I was doing, I had no interest in anyone else. Only my priority was gambling.
I think he really treated all his family a bit like that, and I suppose that's what people with addiction do, obviously. Do you remember the time that he brought you into the...
Yeah,
do you want to talk about that?
I remember the time he rang me one day and I was at my friend's house, and he said, I think he said, you're going to bring me to Galway shopping, did you? Could have, yeah.
And I said I wanted to go, like, and I had money in the credit union at the time, and I was going to take out so much, and I was taking out so much for him as well. Just dropped everything and went into Lochray, and I tried to go to the credit union to get the money out, which they wouldn't give it to me, like. And I didn't know what it meant, like, you know, but that's just one memory I'd have.
It gives you kind of a sick feeling in your stomach to think about, like, when you have a conscience back, to go about it and try and fool your family in that way, like.
Now I know a lot of these photographs are pre-drinking, but some of them, you know...
Do you not remember the morning this got taken? We hadn't sent down our clothes to be washed, despite the fact we probably wouldn't have washed them anyway. Our nice clothes.
Oh, for photograph clothes. Yeah.
Photograph clothes, yes.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager, she wasn't showing up to things that other mothers were showing up to, like even things in the school. And I'll never forget, I'd fallen over and I'd split my eyebrow open, and I got about 12 stitches, and you'd obviously had a drink that day. The principal was like, okay, you know, your eye is just kind of like pouring blood, so we're going to sort that out. Call your mum, and call mum. And she was like, do I have to go to the surgery? Do I have to go up to the doctor's office? And I was like, well, no, Mr. Kane said he'd bring... All right then, well, I'll see you later then. There was a handful of friends that would have known how bad it would have gotten. Like, I mean, at one point, like, I was working in a chipper, and I think that was one of the things that, like, still stung every so often, that my mum had, you'd rob money off me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's little things like that that I look back on now and I'm like, God, you're a crap mum.
TJ, is there any of that time that you remember yourself?
All I can remember was I was sitting in this kitchen, and I think I was about 3 or 4. Mum was running around hiding bottles of drink because Dad had found one, and he knew she was hiding them. So she hid one behind the microwave. She was slurring her words, and she was saying, just don't tell anyone. And Dad came down and says, has she hidden any? And I pointed towards the microwave. I couldn't say anything. I didn't want to say anything. That's all I can remember. That's the only short period.
My mum would do sneaky things, which I shouldn't have played up to, like she'd buy me phone credit and stuff like that. If I kept it quiet, she'd have a drink. And then she knew, like, I was occasionally, you know, experimenting with cigarettes, and it'd be, I don't mind if you have a cigarette, and then it'd be, well, I couldn't really say anything to Dad because
I knew about your smoking. Yeah. But I think Tomas then had quite a typical male reaction, and if I was still up, I would be ordered to bed. You know, get the fuck out of the way. You go to bed. We can't even look at you. And it was just his frustrations. He would come in and he'd have to start cooking, or he'd start at Elaine and say, get the fucking dinner going, you know. And they're teenage girls. They wanted to watch music TV and text their boyfriends, and they had lessons to do, and that's what they should have been doing.
There was a period of time where I thought to myself, I never want to have children later on in life, because I feel like each one of us had to take on those little bits and pieces, and it was kind of like rearing each other as such, and it was just, yeah, it was just really,
really frustrating. I made you feel that way. You know, I say to myself, if that was me, if I had grown up the way you had grown up, with all the emotions that are going on around you, and all the stress and anxiety, and the will she, won't she, you know, when you're standing on your toes your whole life, I think I would be a complete and utter nut job, and I mean that respectfully.
I know, I joke and I call her, oh, you're a bad mum, like, but she knows that I don't really mean that, like.
I know,
sort
of. Sort of.
TJ Reid going to take this. Easy for a player of that quality.
By July 2015, hurler David Lennon was in massive debt. His gambling addiction had reached breaking point.
And Davy Glennon makes way.
People get taken off in every game and they're very down over being taken off, but I was in a different world, and how was I going to get out? Keep going, trying to win back that money that I thought I would, have that dream of having the nice car, being able to go off on holidays, being able to win the easy money to do all this stuff that I wanted. But behind it all, it was just eating me up, and it was crippling me, and I was financially broke. You know, when I got home, there was no one at home. Like, this is a Sunday night, they're all, you know, going out, and it was going through my head. I said, I'm going to have to do something. I didn't want to kill myself, I wanted to kill that life I was living. But
did you never think of your parents, your friends, your, like, you know, just for, oh, I don't know, I suppose maybe I just don't understand it.
I suppose it comes back to the selfish streak again from me in my addiction, that I didn't care. I thought life was over. I said I had to do something fast and just easy to get away from this life. And it wasn't until, I suppose, he texted, you were going home with Benny, just to leave the door open, that he was en route, and I suppose it clicked with me.
It never dawned on me that he'd be like thinking like this or whatever, like, you know, just a normal text, just matter of luck, I suppose, like.
Just 4 days after his first half substitution at Croke Park, Davy checked into Coonwira for treatment.
Oftentimes somebody who's drinking, gambling or using drugs, they're not fully aware of the harm that they're causing. The families are every bit as damaged as the person in addiction, because they've got so used to the trauma of addiction in their homes that it eats away at them bit by bit.
That's the most important this week now.
Come on, Davy.
Sorry.
How are you?
How are you?
Davy, your timekeeping is impeccable as usual.
It's terrible.
How are you?
Good, now and you?
Good.
Good stuff. Where I camped out at night.
Yeah.
This woman here used to keep me on my toes every morning.
Anne.
She's Shine, that's Anne. How are you?
What room were you in, Davy?
I was in this one here.
Very good.
So
go in and take a look and see does it bring back any memories for you.
On the right hand side, this is my bed, I suppose. When I came in this door, it was just literally relief as such, and it wasn't relief that I left it to someone else out there to deal with. It was parked for that moment, and it wasn't getting any worse.
Yes.
It was being quenched. The fire was being quenched. I was in denial as such, and I wasn't as bad as that person.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? But who was I to judge, or who was I to point the finger? I was probably just as bad once I got thinking about what I had done and what I was doing to my life and what I was doing to other people.
With Davy in Coonwira, his family were left to deal with the fallout from his addiction.
It hit the radio, and thankfully I used to have Galway Bay FM on. The papers, I mean, no matter what they can find in people, and they're doing it every single day, and people won't buy them or pick them up unless it's the worst of the worst. You nearly feel responsible as well as a parent that it's nearly your fault. It came to a colossal amount of money that he owed. There was all different figures put on it. At the time, we told him that definitely their money would be paid back somewhere or other, if it was to take him the rest of his life. But no, it had to be now, you know. There's 5 people around the table, and they're telling you, well, you know, you have to pay up this money, find it somewhere or other. And you go out, you don't even have that money, like, you don't, like it wasn't really our problem. It shouldn't have been our problem. I mean, I had to remortgage the house to pay back. And I mean, it's parents and it's family that suffer for the addiction. I mean, I didn't create the addiction. I didn't, but I feel I am a big part of it, of his addiction. It has really taken its toll on my life anyway, you know. But and I'm sure his father's as well, and on his.
No tea?
Tea, that's your tea.
It's been 10 years since Val has had any alcohol. Following many failed attempts in rehab, she only got to the root of her addiction after an act of desperation.
I was very conscious of the harm I was doing emotionally to Thomas and the children, and they couldn't have a life with me. You know, they just didn't have any kind of quality of life. I was angry and crazy and horrible and everything like that. So I made a decision, and I believed at the time that I was making the most compassionate and right choice for my husband and children, that it was the right move, and in the long term it was going to be the best move for them, and that was for me to take my life. We were sleeping in here at the time, and I'd spent a few days back here drinking and trying several ways. I thought I would be able to just drink myself to death, and many's a night I was in bed and I just was saying to myself, I just want to not wake up in the morning, just not wake up in the morning, and that's it. My daughter Louise often says that if I had been successful in my suicide, that they wouldn't know now what they do know, which was my alcohol problem was a dual diagnosis issue. It wasn't because I had the disease of alcoholism or that it was a genetic preposition or anything. It was a mental health issue that was creating an alcohol problem, and I would have died and they would never have known that. I thought I was releasing them. I thought I was doing them the biggest favour I could ever do for them, and I was actually going to set them free and they could finally be happy and unburdened. But I would have been doing the complete opposite. The complete opposite. So it all worked out well in the end, you know, and we're happy with it.
Everyone gets a second chance in life. I've got a second chance in life, and I'm trying to take that. And you know, my rehabilitation was probably the best 3 months I've ever done. People ask me nowadays, and in good faith, how am I? And I kind of say to them, you know, I'm good. You know, like, I'm living a normal day. I'm not gambling. It's a great day.
I suppose we get on better now or whatever, that for all or whatever, we can actually go and do something together, like we can go out and poke around, even just as simple as that, go and poke around the ball, which you never did before. You go in and get a coffee or something, like, you know, and you can actually sit down with someone and actually just talk to them.
I'm proud of him now because he's going in the right direction, and I mean, if it takes whatever it takes to have got this far, well, so be it.
3, 2, up again, fellas.
It takes time where you have to gain respect back from people and trust, and I know there's lots of people out there that probably don't trust me, but slowly I'm trying to regain that trust back on them, and hopefully one day that I can pay that back to people again, you know.
You have to prove yourself, maybe not prove yourself, but if you want to have a life, like, really, you know, you just have to move on and try to be a better person, you know.
This could be the road to recovery. There's a lot of bumps on the way, holes on this passage. Who was in charge of fixing it is another thing.
Cora is back in touch with her son, Paddy. She's feeling hopeful that he can beat his addiction. She and her husband have allowed him and his girlfriend, Aisling, to stay in a cottage on the family's land.
Did you like the tiles I brought yesterday evening?
I didn't look at them.
Did you?
No.
My husband and I, we came to the decision. It was breaking our heart to think of him living rough. And I think, you know, charity begins at home.
John's great piece up there. And plus you have a car and you can go where you like and do what you like as well, so that's another bonus as well, like, so you're never stranded, so.
Who owns it?
It's my father's place.
And your mother's?
My father's.
Nobody actually tells you in any textbook how to cope or have the skills when you have a young man that's addicted to drugs. As a mother, you'd keep trying, you know, to get him on that path, but you know, it's sitting with me that this time he has an interest. He's much better in himself. Maybe now is his time. And I would feel they'll get there. They're a good team together, and you know, it's just being patient.
I have a lot going on in my head, and I don't really know where my head is at the minute. I'm all over the shop, to be honest. But I know I can come out the other side of it. And I have a plan in my head, and I think it'll work.
I suppose the trust has to be built up again.
But you worry so much, Cora.
You're not going to build trust by arguing and fighting and ringing and 100 times a day. That's not trust.
Maybe I'm over the top. I just worry.
Yeah, there's no need to. No need to.
I have that fear that you go back to.
I've lived in every.
Go back the wrong way.
I've lived in every street in Ireland, and I've been okay, and I'm in a safe place now. There's no need to worry. I wouldn't say off it completely. Like I've used it in the last 3 weeks. I've even used, like, being honest about it, I have, like, but I'm not sick from it, or I'm not dependent on it.
There's that bit of fear and that bit of shame that he might slip back, but I think I've come to a stage in my life, 16 years, it can never go back, be as bad as it was. There was very, very raw times, you know. And look, it's all in the past, and we just hope now this time he'll find recovery here and he'll be happy, both Ashley and himself, and that the rest of the family will try and forgive.
I remember saying, once a junkie, always a junkie, you know. I didn't think you could get clean, like, you know. I really didn't believe you could get clean, like. Not use drugs and have fun. No way.
Lie down there and relax. Okay? Now.
Have a beautiful life today. A beautiful new relationship, you know. Have another child on the way.
Here are the eyes here, guys.
That black thing is the eye, is it?
Yeah. And the little nose. Ah, isn't that lovely?
Little nose.
And the little mouth. Look, guys. No, hold on. Look. Isn't that lovely? Look, the tongue. Is that lovely?
I went to UCD. I done a course in social studies, like, you know, because I want to try and give back.
And this is the heart there. Do you want to hear it?
My goal would be to get a full-time job in the services, you know. Just try and help other people, like, they've been in my situation, like, and tell them there's a bit of hope, you know. All I wanted was one day clean. That's all I wanted. And what I have today, like, you know, is it's amazing. I wouldn't have dreamed of it, like, you know, I really wouldn't have dreamed.
And there is a glimmer of hope too for Dave and his family. His eldest daughter has recently been back in touch.
Circumstances have changed a little bit in connection with her daughter. We met her 3 weeks ago, and she was in a bit of a distraught state over an incident that happened in her life. We have been able to get her into some services for rehabilitation, and this is the first time we felt that she herself wanted to do this. It's very mixed emotions because we've been let down so many times before, and she has struggled with it, but we hope now where she is that she will be able to come to a better understanding of herself and to be able to identify the reasons why she herself put herself in that situation, you know, and the family, of course, will row in and support her all the way.